everyone, how y'all doing? So slowly and surely we're opening up the country again, but until then comics are taking a hit, most particularly comic book shops. And given the amount of time where people couldn't go outside, there was a huge spike in digital sales. Some people are kind of curious, what is this all going to mean for the long run of comic books? Is digital going to play a more primary role in future comic book sales? Now, a lot of comic book buyers definitely have a bias against digital, not only because it's a less superior form of a comic book, but also because it does little to nothing to actually help comic book shops. As someone who grew up reading digital comics and manga, I, for the most part, am familiar with the format, and I really don't mind reading digital, I don't mind buying digital. What I personally hate is Comixology, and I hate that a lot of publishers lean on Comixology as their digital output for their comics. Not only is Comixology in desperate need of an update, and not only do I hate that terrible panel by panel click 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 format of reading, but Comixology also takes a massive cut from sales, which I think pressures publishers to put up their comics for physical price, even though it really should be less than physical price because it's digital. And most people agree that there are a lot of digital comics being sold on Comixology that are just way too overpriced that you wouldn't pay for. Most people would pay like $1 for a digital comic, and unless it's like a really big graphic novel, we don't really want to spend $5 for it. And it's because that Comixology is one of the biggest places to go get your digital comics that I know comics probably don't have much of a shot of getting anywhere digitally. It's because there's this big lack in innovation with digital comics, and businesses don't really bother investing on innovating in digital comics or creating a competitor for Comixology or even webcomics. For the most part in webcomics, it's just been Webtoons and Tapastic for the longest time. It's because there's no need to come up with a competitor. There's no need to innovate something to make it better if there's no money in it. Webcomics and digital comics do not see a very large profit. And I think there's a lot of reasons that contribute as to why it doesn't ever see a very large profit, but the biggest reason is just because people like reading stuff in physical. I remember when people thought that motion comics were going to be the next thing, and I swear 8 out of 10 people hate motion comics. It gives them motion sickness. The innovation that really needs to be done for digital comics is all about conveniency and price. You can lower your price on something when you increase the popularity of it. The more sales you get, the lower your price can be, and you can still see it turn in profits. Obviously, if Comixology wants to take a 50% cut of your sales, then chances are they know that only a small bit of people will actually be buying the comic, and they want to make as much as they can. And at what point is that 50% cut going to go up to 80 and then 100, and then at some point you have to pay Comixology to put your comic up on there? I'm telling you, man, you give an inch, they're going to take a mile. If you let them fuck you in the ass, they will fuck hard. Don't believe me? Just look at recycling. Remember when you took your shit to the recycling place and they paid you? Now they're making you pay them to recycle. The whole world is getting cucked. Now, digital comics can be done right, and I think there's a lot to take from Japan in that matter. Manga has been a very profitable media from Japan, not only selling their books, but also selling it online. You get a subscription and basically you can read new chapters, so many series, like way too many, more than you can ever read, and it's like $2 a month. And the reason why it's so cheap, it's because they know that you're going to sign up for the subscription just to read the new chapters, but when the volume actually comes out, you're going to go out and buy it in physical. And I feel like digital comics could be treated similarly to that. Rather, instead of being treated like the only version of a comic you can buy, you can treat it as like a preview, an early version of the comic before the physical version comes out. And you know, for how much shit I talk on Comixology, they never really had that bad of an idea either. The idea of people uploading their comics onto their site, they set the price, you know, maybe it's $1, maybe it's free, and then people can browse through, find something they like, and read it on their stupid little Kindle thing. But nobody wants a little stupid Kindle thing, so they read it on the website, and the website is trash. If I were to innovate digital comics, I would make it like a Steam application. You know, you put the application on your computer or your phone for free, create an account, set up your payment and all that. People can put up their comics, set their price, you know, same. Buy what you like, and then they'll be in your library, and then when you want to read one, you'll download it and you'll be able to read it on the application, and it'll all be stored there. So you don't have to worry about downloading PDFs and then losing the file on your computer or accidentally deleting it. But also having the option to download it and have it on your computer on the application means that you can still read it without being online. Yay! And you could probably store like a lot of comics just on an application. But if you did start to run out of space, you could always just delete some comics from your library and you won't have to buy them again, because digitally it'll know that you already paid for that comic. So you can just re-download it when you want to read it again. And theoretically, there could be webcomics on there too. There could be those stupid motion comics. There could be visual novels. But I don't know, there's a lot of different ideas that could be applied if businesses found it worthy of their time to invest in those types of projects. If I knew how to code, I could probably come up with something, but I don't. I am codeless in knowledge. If comic book shops do eventually dwindle out of existence, I don't think physical comics will dwindle with it. Rather, instead, you'll probably just find most of them in Walmart or Barnes & Noble, assuming Barnes & Noble hasn't gone out of business as well. Not to mention, there's still online sales. You can buy them online and have them delivered to you. But there will probably be less exported physical comics if there is a disappearance in comic book shops. Maybe some areas won't be able to get their hands on physical comics. Maybe they will just turn to digital because it's just easier for them. But I don't see there ever being a future where digital comics ever have the capacity to overtake physical. And I feel like people who say that digital will take over physical are just trying to be hip. And you know, webcomics too. I never really hated webcomics per se. I know I always say that I hate webcomics, but it's not entirely true. That's just an oversimplification. I hate what webcomics became. I hate what expectations became of webcomics. The idea that you have to upload something every single week. All that did in the end was degrade quality and make stories stretched out super far. And the idea that you upload one page every week. Geez, man. I don't mind waiting for something if it's good, but there's just so much high demand when it comes to creating a webcomic because you just desperately want to stay relevant. And even after all that work, most of your money is made on Patreon. But you see, these are just my thoughts, and I'm just kind of ranting a little bit in this video. But let me know what you think personally down below in the comments section. Do you think digital comics will ever rise up? Do you think digital comics will controversially dwindle out themselves? What do you foresee in the future of comic books? And as usual, remember to like the video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!
Program restart.